And good evening, everyone. This is going to be a segment that I'm calling Autism Inside-Out. And of course, those people have probably figured out what I mean by that. And that means it's sort of what I'm feeling or what other people are feeling and on the inside, and trying to get it out. That's why it's not called Autism Inside Backwards or something, you know? All right. Okay, what am I doing here? Very good question. I wrote a response. I don't know how I even got started with this, but there's a website called, I think it's Quora, Q-U-O-R-A is how it's pronounced. Actually, when I printed this off, I didn't get, yeah, it is, okay, Q-U-O-R-A. And this is what the original question was. It says, people with autism, it's kind of strange, it's not punctuated well. People with autism, what age were you when diagnosed? Do you think being diagnosed made your life better or worse? What do you think prompted your diagnosis? Of course, that was, that was something I felt I could answer. And my answer took an interesting twist. I didn't just take the me and tangents, I mean, I never take, I've been plagued my whole life with this, I could take boiling water and make it difficult, It's like, okay, is this the right pot? Is this, is the temperature correct? Is it, I'm exaggerating that, but that's about not an exaggeration, all right. Anyway, what the twist this took has me going on a lot of different ways. What I ended up doing, because when I was thinking of this, it was like, I keep trying to think of a way to make autism more tangible to people who aren't autistic. It's easy to be more tangible to somebody who is, not naturally, but I think it's also maybe surprising to people who are neurotypical that people who are autistic, and newly diagnosed especially, are still learning about what autism is and how it's expressed itself through them. So I took the approach of sort of talking about, this is sort of coming from interviews I've done and just people I've been talking with, but this came out, and I'm not going to read this, I'll make a link to it, but I'm just going to sort of paraphrase it, I guess. It'd be, I start off by saying that one of the things that we feel is isolation and alienation, and being alienated from the rest of society. And it took the twist of saying, okay, here we are neurodiverse, born neurodiverse, feel perfectly natural being neurodiverse. I mean, you don't, that's why you've got people that are my age and younger and older and that go so long not knowing that they're autistic, because at the very beginning, at the very start of all this, we try to put a neurodiverse system to we try to make a neurodiverse system function properly in a neurotypical environment that has been set up to function with neurotypicals. And that immediately, because I was always looking back thinking, when did this start? When did I start masking? And sort of my gut was saying that, it was, since I couldn't say, yeah, I remember the day I went, whoa, you better start doing this, that is something very early, of course, but I really think that it starts at a point as soon as the conflicts start to arise between what our neurology wants and needs and what we're getting. I mean, that could be, as an infant. I mean, it could be, I mean, we look at language delays and things, and that's, you know, I've got all different kinds of theories on this too, as you know, because I've worked with language. When I was working with deafblind, I started working with, I worked through the Helen Keller National Center, I mean with the Helen Keller National Center in Long Island, New York. It's their national headquarters. And it's a school, it's a residential, yeah, I guess you call it a residential school because students live there. But they also, part of their student population were adults, young adults, who were born deafblind, usually with other complications. So you've got these people that are born, can't see, can't hear, and we have to establish language with them. And so we learned that process of how do you, and it was fascinating to me because basically, you know, you have an impulse to do something, and if you have someone else intervening, and what a big time for them to be teaching language was, well, it started first thing in the morning. But from what I remember, it's been 20-some years now, so give me a break. From what I remember, a big part of this, I mean, because you got to be motivated to want something. And if somebody then offers a choice, they say, you know, and breakfast is what I was going to say, you know, eating is a really big motivator. So that you would offer cereal or toast, and you would sign it. And I mean, it's more complicated. It's a lot more complicated than this, but I'm simplifying it. And so the person signs toast, and you give them toast. If they don't want toast, and they wanted the cereal, they're going to go, it's like, wait, that's not what I wanted, you know. And, but that's what you get. Now maybe the person says cereal, and then puts their hand over on the cereal, and then that's what they eat. Well, then you don't let them have the actual object, then you make it more abstract. You say, okay, well, so you're going to sign cereal, you're going to sign toast, and that's what you're going to get. So what I'm showing is that there's, the way that the brain is working is it's establishing some sort of symbol to something that you want. Well, boy, did I go on a tangent. Jeez. Anyway, it might be interesting that I add that. And I add that for the reason because I was saying, you know, where does this develop that we start having this conflict between our neurodiverse system and the neurotypical world? Because I mean, if you use the example of the person that's deafblind, born deafblind, if that person is born into a society that's all born deafblind, and that would become the natural way they would be teaching language. You know what I mean? It's like, we look at it as, oh wow, you have to set things up and do this here. Well, over the eons, there would be a really efficient system developed. Well, that's what's happened in the neurotypical world, is over the eons, they have said, well, we're going to socialize this way, we're going to communicate this way, words will mean this, and on and on and on. And we're trying to fit into that. Now, we're not 100%, we're not like cats, you know, that are wearing people suits. We are humans. So there are things definitely going to be in common, but there's a subtle difference. That's where I'm going with all this. Now, what I did in the article is I started with saying that, you know, that we are neurologically different, and we're trying to live in a neurotypical world. And that we have, at some level, you're always aware of that. That the people that you're working with aren't using the same system. It can be, and I think this is even like in the approach to teaching and learning. The neurodiverse system, I think, is looking for things like patterns, and that this just sounds really crazy, but if you were, the neurodiverse kids need to learn music and rhythm, and I don't mean to play music, but they need to be exposed to patterning, and we're repetitious. We are, and so that there's a whole, the way that we would, if like I say, if it was a neurodiverse world for the last 100,000 years, how would we be teaching our kids? Would we be starting with ABCs? Would we be starting to teaching them to read? Would we be, even as infants, would we be, the mama, daddy yeses and nos, and would we be starting with words? Or would we be starting with organization? Would we be starting with ways to pull in all this information and to start organizing it? It's just an interesting, and where I'm also going with this too, is that the way that we need to present autism. I mean, right now, everyone, not the world at large sees it basically as a disease or a disability, and it is in a number of cases. But how much of that is because we're putting neurodiverse people in a neurotypical system? It just makes me wonder. And that's really all I wanted to talk about. And I know my mind's going to keep going on this, because I think, like I say, it just opens up different ways of thinking about autism, but also I'm in that stage of myself in the stage of thinking through what it means to be neurodiverse, and really starting to find it better to err on the side of we're completely different, which I don't think it's 100%, but I think it is. I think the foundations could be that far off. Just something to think about. And what we need some of these incredible, gifted autistic people out here to write that book, of the neurodiverse world, what it would look like. What would raising kids look like? What would educational systems look like? What would language be like? What would we do for recreation? I was just talking to a friend of mine who was invited to a Halloween party. She said, "Oh, I got to decline that. I won't be able to." I mean, late at night with a bunch of people you don't know, dressed up that you can't see, with weird lights and colors. You know what I mean? It's like it's sort of like I don't know. How opposite or how offensive of a good time can you make? I mean, you call that fun, and it's sort of like I guess free climbing Mount Everest, with I mean, it's like that's not my idea of fun. I mean, I don't know. It just anyway, just food for thought. Leave it on the note though that as we start to expand the awareness of autism, I think it is very, very important to hit upon and emphasize the neurological difference as a normal neurological difference, normal to us. Like theirs is normal, ours is normal. And that sort of takes this medical pathology or whatever, I don't know if that's the right term, but it's something wrong if you're autistic. And it's like, I mean, there's expressions of autism with kids that have it extreme, or again, I'm going to say, well, Is that because we were of the environment that we're raising in, or is that because of, you know, whatever? That's another whole issue, but I'm off on a tangent. I kind of lost my thought there. But you know, it's just that how we present it, I think we need to really think it through, because it's not working the way it is now. And I'm not saying everybody is, we're going to put it in the right context or whatever, and everyone's going to go, oh wow, okay, I get it. But maybe a little easier, especially when it comes to the accommodations we need. Adults, you know, it's great that they've got all these services for kids to get them through that hump in life, but there's a bigger hump after that, you know, that we got to get over, and that's going to require accommodations. I'm looking at myself now. It's funny, at work, I'm starting to really appreciate my job now, based on the fact that what I do is maintenance in an apartment. I've got an apartment manager and me. We take care of the whole building. She does all the paperwork and blah, blah, blah. I take care of the building. Well, I'm able to basically set my own schedule, set my own time. If I'm going crazy doing something and then I need to take a break, I can take a break. That's pretty ideal. I was thinking about getting a different job. I really was. And I was thinking about what it'd be like working at a job compared to what I'm doing now. And it's like, wow. It would be a lot more stress. It would be a lot more stress to work at Costco, you know, and that's actually where I applied. You know, I mean, if you say, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed, I'm going to take 10. They're going to like, well, take about 110 and just walk out the door, you know, go. But wouldn't that be a great world if, let's just say we did something like, we had an agreement, said, I'm going to I'll put in a 6 to 8 hour day. It may take me 10 hours. Because during this day, I may need to go to my car. I may need to go to wherever I can find that gets me out of whatever I'm feeling at the moment. You know what I mean? And whatever that person needs. I don't think these are unusual to the current system, but I don't think they are impossible accommodations to make if the people understand why they're making them. If they can have a person who's autistic who busts their butt and can get in 6 hours or 4 hours done what some people can't get done in 10, it's a win-win situation. I mean, I'll give you an example. A lot of times people who are deaf are valued because they can't sit around and talk with their coworkers. They tend to be extremely focused. They tend to be, okay, I'm here to work, I don't have anything else to do, I don't have anyone else to talk to. And so they focus. I think we could see some of that same kind of advantage to the workforce in the autistic community. Just one example. What if we start having businesses make accommodations so that stores, architecture. I mean, can you imagine if architecture well said, let's do another set of lighting in here so that certain days of the week or certain times of the day, you know, how many people who are autistic are nocturnal? If it was 20% and you're talking, you know, a significant amount of people, you may have some stores that are willing, well, you've got stores already that are open 24/7. Maybe they could you just say, hey, just let you know, you're going to have an influx of people coming in between now and, you know, 7 a.m. or 3 a.m. This, how far am I into this? Oh man. Okay, well, I'm just going to add this last part. One of the things when I work with people who are deafblind, that they call them SSPs, support service providers, and it was a person that, let's say you went to a doctor's office, or, well, that's more of an interpreting role. Let's say you went to an event, okay, and let's say a lecture, a conference, or something like that, so that you were a guide. You would lead the person from where they needed to go. You also did interpret, but it's not an official interpreting capacity. Always. I mean, I'm going to make exceptions to that. Anyway, what you're doing basically is you're orienting them to the environment. You're helping with communication. You're helping with you're giving environmental clues. I mean, so that you're saying, yeah, you're in a huge room with about 600 people right now, and you're sitting in this part of the room. This is basically what it looks like. This decorated for this season or whatever, and you just fill in information they can't get. Wouldn't it be interesting if we had support service providers for people who are autistic, who could communicate things like, this is what to expect in your routine today. This is what this is what you expect in where we're going. This is how it's set up. This is how many people are going to be there. This is and then to be also then the what do you call that? The person between. If you were to go, if you were to meet with, let's say it was a job interview, maybe the support service provider meets with that interviewer and says, okay, this is what you're going to expect. This is what I'm going to do. And that's what interpreters kind of do. Although it's better known now what to expect, so that I don't remember doing that ever, to be honest, because we go to a doctor's appointment, they've done it before. But sometimes you were interpreting for somebody who did not know how to time the conversation, so that while I'm interpreting to someone, they go off on another subject or something. It's like, I'm not done yet, or you know what I mean. So anyway, so I'm just thinking that there's so much that we can do in our community to help each other, but to help the cause of autism. So anyway, we're going on 23 minutes in on this. If this makes any sense, what I'm trying to do is just get people to think of doing what it takes. Because it's going to be us. It's not going to be a government. It's not going to be some agency. We've got to kind of lead here. I mean, there are advocates, there are organizations out there that are supporting us, and that's great. But they still need to know what it is we need, and that's what we need to find in ourselves. That we are, what accommodations we need. So anyway, enough of that. Thank you for watching Autism Inside-Out, and let me know if this meant anything, or if this makes sense. So I thank you, and good night, and I thank everyone for watching, and those who have become members. No, what are you? You're registered to yeah. You hit the button that says you will watch this all the time. Thank you for thank you for your comments and everything too. And I've got some people out there that have been just very, very kind, and I want to thank all of you personally too. Well, personally, I mean, I guess this is personally. Am I going on a tangent again?